Welcome to Politics Done Right. I am your host, Egberto Willies. This is a progressive program that will take the mystery out of politics. This is the program that will encourage you to make sure government becomes we the people. Whether you are liberal, progressive, conservative, or otherwise, you get to air your point of view. We are an independent media outlet that, unlike mainstream media beholden to corporations, we only owe allegiance to you. Remember, you can also send me a tweet at EGBERTOWILLIES. That is at Egberto Willies. Let us engage. It is Politics Done Right. Well, folks, welcome to one more edition of Politics Done Right. I'm Egberto Willies, your host. That fade in didn't work. It went straight, bam. I wanted it to fade in, and I pushed the wrong button. But guess what, folks? We're going to have a great show for you today. We have a great guest, somebody that I go back with a long time. 10 years we were frozen on the malls in Washington, D.C., giving speeches. You're saying audio desync. What do you mean by audio desync? I sure hope we're not having audio issues this early in the show. If that is the case, we're going to recue it because now is it still desynced, folks? Anybody that's listening, let me know if the audio is completely out of sync or whatever, because every now and then some crazy thing like that happens. So, folks, I'm waiting for your messages. Is the audio in sync or is the audio not in sync? Okay, hermanos, hola, hermanos y hermanas. Dimitri OG, welcome aboard. AVQ is the one who told me the audio is out of sync. Let me know. Who else is here? Michael Rudnin, welcome aboard. Anyhow, we are going to have a great show for you today, folks. Anyhow, let's go ahead and get started. It seems to me like it's still in sync according to what I'm seeing out here, but let's go ahead and get started. The video and audio are not in line. Really? Okay. Let me see what, it's all good time. Okay, so Dimitri saying it's okay. Okay, Reynolds, it's still audio sync. Well, folks, we are going to have to recue this. So here's it. Stick with me. We are going to recue this again. So we're going to shut it down and shut it. Okay, we are back. I'm going to wait a minute till we go ahead and get these things all queued in. We are back. We are back live. For those of you, you're probably going to have to go recheck on a different level as we queue in again. We are back. Let's see about resyncing now. See if my folks tell me we are now synced or not. Folks, let's get 1 minute now to wait for synchronization of it all, and we'll then be right back again. So I think I'm going to have to change a few things as we go along. Okay, AVQ said it's much better. AVQ, what I'm going to do is wait a bit to get everybody back online. So let's wait about 30 seconds and get everybody back online. They will be back online, I imagine, in about 30 seconds or so. And then we'll get the program started. Folks, we had apparently some synchronization issues in the beginning of the show. And of course, you know how it goes. Here we make sure to satisfy our listeners as best we can. Today we have a great subject to talk about. Bear with me as I resync. Let's see, get shareable link. Okay, I'm about to make one more edit, and then we'll be ready to fly in full gear. One more edit. Hey, when you start resyncing a show, it's not the easiest thing to do because all these pieces have to come together all at once. I'm embedding that. That's embedded correctly. That's good. We're ready to fly. Okay. Now, everybody, is this much better? Can you all see the synchronization fine? Bruce Pollard said yes. Kevin Higgins says good job, which if Kevin Higgins say it's a good job, that means it is a good job. All right, let's go ahead and start getting busy with what we're going to talk about today. What are we going to talk about today? Today, the title of the show is, make sure we got all our people back. Bear with me. I got to get Coffee Party back online, and Coffee Party is not online, so I've got to go ahead and do that zap thing. So bear with me one more second, folks. We're going to get busy right now. We're going to get busy right now. We're getting busy. We're getting busy. Okay. Okay. We're getting back online. We're back online. Okay. Title of the show today is Jeanene Louden on Trump's paramilitary in Portland and also COVID-19. Hemophilia drug pricing. We're going to talk about that after we talk to Jeanene, as well as COVID failure, as well as a few other things. But what I want to do is get busy. Let's go ahead and get Jeanene Louden online because this is a very good interview that we did. I want to get that going, and then we'll move on from there. So here, folks, is the one and only Jeanene. Welcome to one more edition of Politics Done Right. I'm Egberto Willis, your host, and I'm with the one and only Jeanene Louden, president of Coffee Party USA. Jeanene, how are you doing today?
I'm doing well, Alberto. It's going to be a cooker here, and I hear it's going to be even worse where we are.
Oh, yes, yes. But, we're used to it here. Over there, you guys are not.
No. We would call this late August weather. Usually there's this sort of wave. I'm in Oregon. I'm in the Willamette Valley of Oregon. So we usually don't hit this kind of temperature until...
let me tell you, Jeanene, before we even get into the stuff that I want to talk to you about,
Sure.
Tell me about all these goons in Portland from the federal government that's kind of really making us look like a fascist state. What's your thoughts on that?
Well, it's from our point of view, it's terribly frightening and it's very frustrating because, great minds are looking into what does it take to end this occupation by what looks like federal mercenaries here. You probably know, you may or may not have heard about Portland before. We've got a huge activist community, meaning, the George Floyd Memorial, tens of thousands of people show up. And of those tens of thousands, there are a handful of folks that call themselves anarchists, and they do anarchist things. And then there are more right-wing militia types. Well, no, they're overtly militia types. And they show up anywhere rallies happen, and they show up anywhere, certainly the anarchists are going to show up, where the drumbeats have gone out that they're showing up. And to the point where there's been hijinks, so to speak, where it's big anarchist gathering at this park, and then only the right-wing militia shows up. It's like, it's like saying, what if you threw a street fight and nobody came? So it's a very predictable equation here. Things got tough after, as you know, the demonstrations here have been ongoing ever since June 1st, around then. And people here know how to deal with the fact that ultimately the anarchists and the militia go at each other. And again, I cannot stress enough, tens of thousands of people. But those folks are now being called rioters. The group is being called a mob because there are a few bad eggs, right? And, Governor Brown, the whole decision to bring in these people is Governor Brown calls it political theater, and that's all it is. Because I promise you, if you show up looking like the Gestapo, I call them the Trumpstapo. If you show up looking like the Gestapo.
The Trumpstapo.
Well, truly, this is who they are. They work for the White House.
Right.
And if you send them in, you will rile up people. And that's all they've done. And so it's like what did they used to call it? It's self-fulfilling prophecy.
Yes.
You can create what you want by doing what you shouldn't do, or what you would have to do if the thing actually happened. It's circular logic. The governor has asked them to leave. The mayor has asked they leave. As a matter of fact, I think the last thing I read, the mayor said, if you step off federal property, we will stop you. Because the thing is, they have every right to protect federal
Right.
property. There's some in Portland. The scale of things here in Oregon is so much, you can't compare Portland and Houston. You can't compare Portland and, even Washington, D.C. But so anyway, the mayor says now, if you step off federal property to protect federal property, we're going to come get you. Now, what that means, I don't know. And frankly, I wasn't looking this morning on purpose because I didn't want to come to this interview livid.
Right.
But it truly is not only, unrequested assistance, which actually makes it interference. But it's also legal in a lot
Right.
of ways. I mean, the great minds are all checking this out. And it's interesting. The law is a little bit of black, a little bit of white, and a whole lot of gray, And so the interpretation, I think this is a test run for this particular strategy. I read an article in Esquire the other day that agreed with me. But we are devastated here because Oregon is an activist state in our small, quiet way. Remember, this whole state is 2 million people.
Right.
And if you include the greater, just north of Portland is the state of Washington and Clark County, Washington. And certainly if you bring those people in, maybe 3 million, who knows? I mean, but so in the great scale of things, we are a small community, but we are a committed community, and we are a community that has utilized and sophisticated our ability to do speech in public, to assemble and to speak. And heck, my little town, which is 50,000 people when the students are here, and was probably 30,000 citizens when the George Floyd Memorial happened here, we had 2,000 people.
Wow. Large
Right.
percentage.
I mean,
Yeah.
a huge percentage of the community. And I would like to add 2,000 masked faces.
Wow. Great.
Yeah. So it's devastating to us. It's actually scary to us. We believe that we're being the guinea pigs for more militia activity.
You opened a door for me to ask you something. You said that there's a lot of gray areas. I understood it to be that they could only be doing their goonery on federal property.
Yes.
Now you're telling me that there are some other observations that you may have seen that give them some legitimacy off the property?
Yeah. Well, so here's the gray. Are these not enemy combatants?
Oh God.
As soon as they become enemy combatants,
Anywhere, yeah.
anywhere, you can hunt them down. And so the whole warrantless, supposedly unprovoked, and all these tactics that are actually quite upsetting to us, and I'm sure any observer, is the identification as protesters as terrorists. And this is following suit with what George Bush did after September 11th, what he did to Posse Comitatus, and what he did to habeas corpus. So
they just have to call them enemy combatants, and then they have full right.
Well, then the gray happens, because who gets to call them enemy combatants? And when the governor of the state, the mayor of the city, when the entire congressional delegation from Oregon says these are not enemy combatants, why do they not have a say?
Right.
Right.
Oh,
there's probably 10. I would say there's probably 10 enemy combatants in Portland. Right. Seriously, they show up at everything. And frankly, there was a murder on a light rail a few years ago by folks that might fall into the terrorist category. But to do this to a major Northwest city because of 10 people, I don't think so. And the crime so far, and the mayor is quick to point this out, the crime they're guilty of is graffiti.
Right. That is a shame. Today I saw a video on Twitter there was this girl walking her dog, and she had some spray chalk paint, you know, the one that's easily removed. And
Oh yeah.
apparently they may have seen her sprayed on the ground. And you had probably 8, 10 guys in full gear, not riot gear, military gear, threw
Yes.
her down to the ground and on top of her. And she's saying, I'm a woman, I'm a woman. And they really lambasted her on the ground. And I'm like, this doesn't look like America. This looked like something we would talk about in Russia or China.
This is not a democratic republic, that is for sure, because the democratic republic has rules of the road, right? One
Right.
of the things Senator Wyden tried to find out, and he's on very sensitive committees in DC, right? He said, what are the rules of engagement? What's your guideline? They said, it's in a book somewhere. Maybe it was Merkley that had told this story, but the point remains, our senators in Washington cannot get the rules of engagement, nor can they get from the White House the basic assessment, the risk assessment that makes these people enemy combatants.
That is sad.
So, right. And so this is a propaganda war, because the more that they can, the more the notion that these guys are terrorists and that this is a mob as opposed to a gathering of protesters, the more that it can be, made to look like more than graffiti or the occasional kick in the flashbang back. Remember, they shot a guy in the head.
Right.
I mean, the more that you can get that belief or that sense out into the public, the more the narrative can be, Portland really deserves everything it's getting, then the more difficult it is for the folks who actually know what's going on to make their case.
That is so, I mean, that is why this election, when every time we say this is the most important election, sometimes that gets old, but the reality is this is the most important election because we are at the brink of using the law. I mean, and you know what's so sad about it? We have a George Bush that when he passed the, what's the law? The whole Homeland Security law, the
Right.
NDA.
The NDAA.
Right. When he, all of that created all the possibilities for a rogue president to get away with doing things that other presidents would probably, and this is what you have all the protesters talk about all the time. The reason we don't want this is when you get somebody like a Trump in office, he'll use it.
Yes.
For the wrong reasons.
Well, it's abuse as opposed to use. I mean, I think there are more lawyers in the White House than anybody else.
Yeah.
And they're all smarty pantsing the law to do things they want to do. I mean, even if you even go to the whole pandemic thing, it shows up there too. It just shows up in so many ways. It's frightening.
Yeah. Anyway, Jeanene, I want to get to our topic, but first of all, let me ask you this: you are the current new president of Coffee Party USA.
Yes.
I'm on the board. You're on the board. Why don't you tell us a little bit about that organization and why it is so important right now for what we do, especially in these times?
Well, I was attracted to Coffee Party because there was, back in 2010, there was a huge outcry it was a nasty, nasty outcry. The narrative was becoming ugly and people were feeling emboldened to show up at town halls and stomp around and scream at people. And I mean, it was a pretty ugly time, the early Tea Party days. I don't want to totally blame it on the Tea Party because I know plenty of Tea Party people, who didn't do this, but it was like the uniform people would put on in order to feel righteous and showing up and being disruptive and disingenuous, I think, in the intent of a town hall or anything else. And I credit Coffee Party with saving my life because, I'm Italian and Scot, and I promise you, I never learned to run. There's no fight or flight for me. There's only fight. And so I was attracted to the notion that if we added, we could air our differences, we could discuss our differences, as long as we maintain the dignity, use civility to maintain the dignity of everyone, you know. And in the passing of John Lewis, which I probably can't talk about without crying. He was such an icon of equality and equity and justice, but all based on love, right? He was not a denigrating, I don't think he had a denigrating bone in his body. He had anger, he had power, he had passion, but he never challenged the veracity of someone's soul, you know? And again, that's a hard one. It was, you want to talk about, people today talk about being woke. It was the civil rights movement that woke me up as a very young teenager. And Dr. King and the entire civil rights movement, including John Lewis and C.T. Vivian, they were my heroes from the time, you know, I started shaving my legs, you know. It's like, it's a long time ago.
Yeah.
And I'm feeling such loss and such a responsibility to maintain or carry on, you know, the torch. They passed the torch, but to millions of us. It wasn't just me. And I'm one of millions who's holding that torch for them still. So of course, Coffee Potty appealed to me because, you know, incite civility and reason. That was right in the place where I needed to be, to use my ability to think through problems and my ability to speak, my ability to write, to focus on the kind of conversation, the kind of narrative where actual, I don't want to say change, but you know what I'm saying? It's like to move the conversation towards something that could actually end in something other than going backwards.
Well,
And go ahead.
Jeanene, let me tell you. First of all, you said not that you changed. Actually, I can tell you categorically that Coffee Party has the concepts and the camaraderie even that we had at the time at our
Yes.
at our strongest. At that time, it changed a lot of folks. Hell, it changed me. You know, so the reality is you did a hell of a job. I remember in a snowstorm during our what was it called in Washington?
Oh, enough is enough.
Enough is enough.
Citizens intervention.
Citizens intervention. We are there. We are in the middle of a snowstorm, giving speeches on what mall was it? The West Mall on or which
Well,
mall?
the Congress was in the backdrop, so there we were on a platform with the Congress in the back.
And giving speeches as the snow fell in Washington, D.C. We chose the weekend that was a snowstorm.
I know, it was beautiful the day before and beautiful the day after.
Beautiful the day after. Actually, I'm going to play that video of all that you had to say during that time, because you had some great words right after the event.
I could hardly speak. My lips were blue because it was so cold. You guys, you cannot understand how cold it was.
Yes, it was really cold. But anyway, so that is Coffee Party, folks. As Jeanene explained, that it's a great organization. Go to coffeepartyusa.com, visit us, and, you know, be a part. Anyhow, Jeanene, you told me, you sent me a text. I wrote a little snippet on my page, said, a willfully ignorant politics is causing our demise. COVID-19 is just a conduit, but it could have been any other externality. And you saw a long conversation that was underneath that particular post. And you said, you know, that is something we should talk about. So I agreed that is something we should talk about. And what I was proposing to you a few times. First of all, tell me a little bit of what you thought about that conversation.
Well, you know, maybe I should preface this with some background. I mean,
sure.
This is the purpose of my education was in public health. And so I may be a more keen observer about the particular COVID-19 issue, but, you know, so I bring that to the party. But also it was amazing to me to watch, well, even my business, I got to tell you, my entire career has been about risk identification and risk management. So whether it's occupational health and safety, community health and safety, I mean, this has been my life. And now we're in this situation where the tools that I've collected over a lifetime are now applicable to a very devastating situation that we find ourselves in. And so the conversation that came after your note, I mean, I think sometimes you just have to be able to make those one-liners, those two-liners, statements so that people can sort of go, wait, you know, what is this? Because again, the narrative is massive, and it's so, it frightens me so much that it is so inauthentic and based on nothing. And then the differences you hear in the narrative from one person or another get blamed on things that don't even play into the story. So for example, do you believe Dr. Fauci or do you believe President Trump? What the heck does that have to do with anything? I mean, seriously, I concur with Dr. Fauci. He's frankly never recommended anything that was beyond Public Health 101, Communicable Disease Management 101, Epidemiology 101. I mean, everything that he's tried to do for the community has been about how we as individuals protect ourselves long enough for medical science to catch up with the pathogen and know A, how to identify it, B, how to treat it, C, how to prevent it, right? And so there's a part where, you know, if you're a cattle rancher and you have a sick cow, you take them out of the herd, right? Everybody talks about herd immunity, they forget about herd segregation. But anyway, so he's not suggesting anything that is controversial, unexpected, surprise, new. It's all standard. What do you do when you're up against an itty bitty critter that likes you and for which you have no defense? I mean, this thing, is at the most 8 months old. It's been on the planet Earth for 8 months. And so it's not about belief. It's really more about, again, with Dr. Fauci, I concur. With President Trump, I disagree. That's a whole different conversation, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
And so when it gets this whole, or the notion that wearing a mask is a political statement, it's like, dude, my mother had chemotherapy. She would have been wearing a mask. I have an immune compromising health condition that I've had for almost 30 years. I was wearing a mask before anybody. I also wore gloves. Well, I have cotton gloves, but I do that during flu season. Yeah, but there's if it's the same thing about going to school. You know, it's like if I had children right now, I wouldn't be able to send them to school because I have a condition that if they brought it home to me, I would be up a creek. Mm-hmm. And so, again, these are all basic things that I have no idea why we're having the kind of conversation we're having, why we have the supposed sides of
to masks.
To masks, to testing.
Right.
If you want to open your business, you have to have testing, because without testing, you don't know who to isolate. Without testing, you don't know who to treat. You know, without testing,
you don't know your risk.
There is no freedom.
Yeah.
It's funny, they talk about, you know, mass constricting freedom. Well, actually what's constricting our freedom is no testing, because we know what to do if someone tests. And then you hear abuse of all the statistics, right? It's like, oh, you know, 0.02% of the people, blah, blah. It's like, dude, if you calculate the number of known cases with the number of deaths, you know, if you've got a 7% death rate. Mm-hmm. If you calculate the deaths per 100,000, the rate is over 40. But they're like, I don't know what they're calculating. You know what I mean? It
is crazy.
Well, and the thing is, there's no textbook you can get the kind of numbers they get. right? There's no place to go other than your imagination to produce the information they're producing. And I don't understand the power in not in refusing to just embrace the fact that we have to know whether or not we have the illness, um, to know, and whether or not you have the illness, right? We have to
Right.
know who to separate, treat, and
You know,
clear
Janine,
them, as opposed to, who are we protecting ourselves from? And to say that we need to protect ourselves from no one when so few people out there know whether or not they have the illness, that where is the sense in that? Where's just the logic? And so I feel betrayed in that sense. It's like any undergrad in health, human health, would know these answers. Anyone.
and you know that it is important. And by the way, you talk about your work and how you do things, and I think that is the reason that you're here talking about this. But also that is the reason why we have so many of these stories on Coffee Party, the Coffee Party USA Facebook page and website. And again, the reasons are these, right? There, in the world of the internet, you have to saturate the internet with more good information than those who are putting conspiracy theories out there, because search engines aren't the smartest animal there is right now. And the only
No.
way to do it is to have a lot of good people putting a lot of real, truthful stuff out there. Um, Now, one of the reasons, Janine, that a lot of people give me hell for my conversations on Facebook and elsewhere, because they think I give the right wing too much time. They think I give the right wing. I talk to them in too much of a long conversation. And what I try to explain about things, both on Facebook, the internet, and other places, is when you're talking on these forums, you're not just talking to the person you're talking to. You're talking to everybody, and in talking to everybody, you can have people who have logic see how their own logic may have failed. You want to kind of expand on that as far as what you do?
Well, uh, sure. I mean, so the Facebook page, if you want to speak to Facebook specifically, I mean, we have over 1 million followers. There's no way that all of those people think the same. The way they're, and if you look in the back page of Facebook, you see the demographics. They're all ages, they're all genders, they're all, you know what I mean? It just really a lot of different kinds of people. So it would be silly of us to be overly targeted. But the other thing is, a lot of what I post is source information or background information. In other words, if you want a good article about what actually happened in 1918 with the flu pandemic, here's a great one from the National Archives, right? Or some history site. Or, in other words, I try not to just always be, here's what's showing up on these 6 outlets, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think a lot of people come to us for that kind of information because we seek it out and we try to explain why you should bother to click through. Because, you can write a lead and you can share an article, but we'll see whether or not people actually read it. I think it's important to acknowledge that a lot of good people, thinking people, educated people are being the things they have access to in order to make decisions or draw conclusions are hugely restricted. So we try to break out of that box and try to find information that is either expertise oriented or globally oriented, or it's not just, or very local. Because very local information, if I go to get a story from Houston right now about what's going on with hospital resources and the pandemic, it's the story. There's very little spin right now.
Right.
Or if you go to the Portland outlets, and Oregon Public Broadcasting is based in Portland, so we're getting tremendous reporting.
Absolutely, about the goons, yeah.
Right, but so go to Portland and see what Portland says. Don't you don't have to go to some international outlet or, one of what are they, the go-to five or whatever.
Right.
I mean, because they're getting their information from Oregon
From the
Public
local.
Broadcasting, right?
Yeah.
And so that's the other thing we try to do is, when the Charlottesville happened, we went to Charlottesville for the information. When Flint was a hot topic, it still should be a hot topic. I guess another day, but go to Flint for that. And so that's something that a national audience and a slightly international audience, we have expats that watch us, and we know, then we get access to the real story, to what the people on the ground think, to what good op-ed or analysis is. Because remember, there's reporting and there's opinion and there's analysis. Mm-hmm. There's three kinds of things that we provide through other people. We add to that a lot of graphic information because people like that, but also because I am a visual learner. I learn a lot from a graph. I learn a lot from a meme. Our job is to select things that speak to the issue and not to a perspective on the issue. So I want to give you facts about COVID. I don't want to give you
opinion.
A snark one way or the other. There might be some opinion in the form of a question, like, here's what I see. What do you see?
Right.
Right. That there's a little bit of opinion in there, but it's not like saying it's not totally slanted. And I think a terrible, but clear example of tainting information is we're all talking right now about the cognitive disability test that the president took at Walter Reed. And people want to say, oh, he took an Alzheimer's test. No, honey, he didn't take an Alzheimer's test. When I was a pretty fierce soccer player in my day, and I promise you I had that test more than once because I got dragged to the ER with a concussion. It could be trauma, it could be a stroke, it could be dementia of some form, for sure. I promise you I have flunked that test righteously. Luckily it wasn't forever, but the time I flunked it, I couldn't even, how you put your finger on your nose? I stuck my finger in my eye. I was messed up. So he didn't take an Alzheimer's test. He took a cognitive function test, a neurological cognitive function test, which something must have happened for them to want to take it.
Well, they took him at midnight to Walter Reed.
Right. Well, you know enough about the White House to know that it's all but a hospital in there.
Yes.
And so whatever happened to him, and he could have just tripped and fallen down the stairs, and it'd be a legitimate consideration for any leader of the free world to take him to Walter Reed for a checkup. But I promise you that they can deal with almost anything.
Absolutely. Well, look, Jeanene, we're coming up on our tight time here, so I'd just like you to give me a closer, and we'll, talk another time.
Oh, well, thank you for taking the time to get my perspective on things, I guess. My perspective is mine. It dovetails with Coffee Party very well. That's why I'm engaged with the Coffee Party. www.coffeepartyusa.com. Come see us on Facebook, and consider participating in what we do, either as a commenter, read and comment. As long as your comments are civil, we get your perspective, and we want your perspective in the dialogue. Consider becoming a member. We're an all-volunteer organization, but we have overheads. So no salaries, just tech. So thanks a lot for your time, Egberto.
Look, Jeanene Louden, president of Coffee Party USA. Folks, again, that is coffeepartyusa.com. Please feel free to contribute to that organization. As a member myself, I can tell you one thing. The name itself does a lot. Jeanene Louden, thank you so kindly for being on Politics Done Right. You have a wonderful rest of your day, and get those goons out of Portland.
Oh, roger that.
All right, folks, I hope you enjoyed that. I want to show you what we did back in October 2011 when we had that big thing out there at in Washington, D.C. This organization, check this out.
We had sleet. Wind was blowing umbrellas inside out. People kept on coming. We stood out there in the rain. We froze our tails off.
I could not be more proud of the leaders of Coffee Party, more proud of the members of Coffee Party.
It was an incredible demonstration of not only our determination to fight for change, but believing in each other and our community, that this is something that has to last.
This is what the Coffee Party is about. It's about all of us working together and participating in our democracy, because that's what it's going to take. That's what democracy is. It's about participation.
I don't think I've fallen in love with so many people at once in my life. I went from believing in what we were doing to owning it in every cell of my body.
We eventually moved it inside. We packed the place. It was fantastic. Everybody shared their stories. Everybody shared their solutions and ideas.
We had a good time. We had a good amount of fellowship. We really came together as citizens, and this is going to be the start of something great.
I know that I saw some kind of tsunami of the heart. I saw all of us gelling together.
It doesn't matter if you're a Republican, Democrat, a far left winger, a far right winger, or an independent. You're welcome, and your voices are welcome to be heard.
We can't just sit back and wait for somebody else to fix it. It's up to us.
Let's go out there, change Congress, change America for the whole country, and not just 1%. All right, folks, I hope you enjoyed that. Anyway, we're going to continue with the program. I have, whoops, I got to get rid of that. I have some an interesting thing about Chuck Todd. Chuck Todd did the excellent piece yesterday that I want to play real quickly, and then we'll move on from there. But check it out. The inconvenient truth. Chuck Todd all but called the vice president, and to put it bluntly, the Trump administration liars. Check this out, and then we'll take it on the other side.
It was just a month ago, amid concerns about rising case numbers, that Vice President Mike Pence wrote an op-ed saying, "Such panic is overblown. We are winning the fight against an invisible enemy." No, we're not. We averaged the WHO's case numbers from Monday to Friday of this past week. France averaged 455 new cases. Germany averaged 408 new cases. Italy, 182. In the United States, NBC News recorded an average of 69,060 new cases per day, with the country topping 70,000 new cases 2 of the past 3 days. Now, does that sound as if we're winning this fight? How did this happen? We are the richest country in human history, with an unmatched medical infrastructure and a literate, educated populace. Yet today, we stand uniquely helpless among industrialized countries in the fight against COVID-19. A world that once looked up to us to do the impossible now averts its eyes over our failure to do the possible.
The failure to do the possible. What else is there to say? The President of the United States has failed the United States. There are articles now that point out that in his failure, he attempted to move that to the states to try to dispel blame. We cannot allow that to happen. The truth of the matter is, the President has failed. It is important for us to put that out there, that he has a 40% approval rating. It's because it is yet to cauterize into people's minds that the reason we have over 140,000 deaths in this country is a direct result of the president's policies. No less, no more. That all other industrialized countries are ahead of us should be evidence enough. But you know, we just may have to continue messaging, and messaging. The president is responsible for the deaths of 140,000 Americans and counting. And folks, don't ever dare forget that, and don't allow anybody to allow the message to change. It is our policy when we unite, when we look at our policy relative to every other country on the planet, even Brazil, it's worse because we have an inept president. Now, folks, when a country right off the coast of Florida, the Bahamas, decides that Americans are not allowed to come into the country, how far have we fallen? How far have we fallen? Anyhow, gene therapy shows promise for hemophilia. It's actually a drug that's working. The gene therapy is working. Drug company develops a drug. Guess what happens? Guess what it is going to cost the person to get cured from hemophilia? $3 million. Approximately $3 million. Check the article out. I think I posted it in the site. $3 million. Now, the reason that the drug company is saying it's going to cost $3 million is because they say, you know, the treatments, if somebody has hemophilia right now, given that they're going to see the doctors many times over their lifetime, it's probably going to be more than $3 million. So we'll just charge you $3 million up front because that's what it would have cost anyway. Americans have to learn what evil is. We have, you know, if I feed you a little bit of cyanide every day, a little bit more every day, a little bit more not every day, but every few weeks I increase the dosage, your body develops a resistance to that cyanide. Something that would kill somebody else doesn't immediately kill you because you have a higher resistance for it. When you have pharmaceuticals who use that argument for the pricing of their drugs, it's not what it costs to develop, it's not how long it's going to be there to recover, but because you would have paid over $3 million over your lifetime, we will charge you $3 million up front to get cured of hemophilia. And they said the reason why we want to have these drugs developed in the free enterprise, in the capitalist system this way, is because that gives incentive to produce new drugs. That is bull crap. Let me tell you something, people. You got to understand this. The engineers who develop the drugs, the scientists who develop the drugs, all the research that goes into creating these drugs, these aren't people that are looking for money or hungry for money or trying to give money to shareholders. These are people who are genuinely interested in disease, solving a problem. As an engineer, there were times that I would sit down and work on problems at midnight, 1, 2, 3 in the mornings. I have brother Bruce in this thing. He's a scientist. There are times he just sits down and he wants to think of things and ideas. Norman is in the house, another engineer. He sits down and he thinks, what can I think about today? We're not asking anybody for that. We just like the idea of creating. We like the idea of solving problems. It is those evil business school people who sit down and say, how can I monetize what Bruce has invented? How can I monetize what Norman has invented? And Norman and Bruce, they don't get the spoils. They don't get that fat cat income or that fat cat bonus from their inventions. They would have done it anyway. They would have created these products anyway. But no. The capitalist says we have to find a way to monetize it. And since we've monetized everything else, we make everything relative to that other price. Folks, if I feed you a little bit of cyanide and increase it every so often, you start to build a resistance. And you build a resistance till, chemically speaking, you simply get a fatal dose that the body can no longer handle. Okay? That is what's happening in healthcare today. We are approaching the point of maximal acceptance of pricing totality, period. And when that comes, and by the way, that price is when you've lost your house, when you have to mortgage everything in order to pay your bill, when they have already extracted all that they can. And at that point, that's when they are willing to change. And I'm saying, you should not have to lose all of your income. You should not have to lose all of your wealth before the change occurs. Think about this. Think about this. It is so important for us to get, Bruce just put out there Medicare for all. That is absolutely true. We have to take away from these thieves, from these thugs, from these charlatans. We have to take away the incentive that they have to create products for something that should be a right for every American citizen. The intellect that was used to develop these drugs came from the totality of man's intelligence. Not one person, not one company. No company is an island. Some people capitalize on the intellect of many others, and that is what the business part of these pharmaceuticals people do. Anyway, let me tell hi. Lena, hello, how are you doing? Lena, I'm sorry you got to go, but yeah, listen to it later. Bruce, welcome aboard. Michael Rudnin, welcome aboard. Bruce Pollard, let's see who else is here. Masticator, giving me trouble as usual. Norman Reynolds, welcome aboard. Let's see who else. AVQ, welcome aboard. If I miss you, please just send me another email and I'll get to you. Jason the man, or Jason is the man. It's called letters. Welcome, Jason is the man. Troy Astro, welcome aboard, Troy Astro. Kevin Higgins, my brother, how you doing? Let's see who else is here. And if I miss you, forgive me. But, I told you that thing was going to go a bit long. And plus, we had the Foy Boy in the beginning of the show. Anyhow, folks, so we got to put our heads on here. We have to be very careful and not allow ourselves to be snowed by these people who would give you the impression that the reason it is acceptable that they milk you, that they bilk you for your health care, that they bilk you for the drugs, is that somehow if these prices aren't charged, oh my God, we won't be able to create these products anymore. It is not true. We should have the system where the people, the engineers, the doctors, the scientists who develop these things can work their magic outside the realm of an evil capitalist structure that uses your body, uses your illness, uses your sickness to do what? To profit from. Folks, I hope you enjoyed the show. We're coming to the end of the show. I want to suggest that you become our patrons. And how do you become our patrons? Please visit us at politicsdoneright.com/patron. politicsdoneright.com/patron. That is where you become a patron. Alternatively, you can join us via, what's the other way that you, let's see, how did I do that? Yeah, I did that, right? Alternatively, you can join us via PayPal. And here's a PayPal link. politicsdoneright.com/PayPal. You can join us via Facebook, which is politicsdoneright.com/Facebook. And of course, you can shop at our store. And where is our store again? politicsdoneright.com/store. And get one of our cups. Hey, check out our cups. Or the book, that all this kind of stuff that I talk about, how we need to redo the economy and all of that. As I see it, class warfare is the only resort to right-wing doom. And don't let the class warfare really take you for a loop. It's really a good thing. It's not really, arm fight. Rather, it's really it's a fight of intellect. And of course, you guys know I've had my weight problems before. Lose weight and be fit now. And I have T-shirts and all that good stuff with Politics Done Right. All those good stuff you can get at our site. So please consider going there to our site and becoming members. Folks, this is no joke. We have to start taking our own lives in our hands. Right now, Congress is debating whether it's going to give people an additional stimulus to get things to survive. And the truth of the matter is, if they don't give a stimulus that is worth a stimulus, the average American citizen, or not the average American citizen, but probably 20 to 30% of the American citizen are going to be in a world of hurt. They will be in a world of hurt, and this is the type of depression type hurt we're talking about. The essential workers will have jobs because, again, they are essential. But there are a lot of jobs that won't come back because a lot of people are working from home. Restaurants are not going to be open. A lot of people are going to be in a lot of pain. And we need to make those people whole because, again, they would not have been in pain had Donald Trump did his job. So everybody that's going to be out of a work, all the permutation that goes down from other people losing their jobs because others aren't working, that's Donald Trump's fault. If you doubt it, go to all the other countries in the world. They didn't only close down, they made their citizens whole. They made their citizens already had universal health care. Número dos, their citizens also got stipends. Their employers were paid to pay them while they were off in order to, because this is a pandemic. This is something that says, let's put the economy on hold. Steady state economy. Let's leave it. Let's freeze the economy where it was. Essential workers do the things that they need to do and get special pay because they're putting themselves at risk more than anybody else. These are the things we have to think about. And these clowns in Washington, specifically the Republican side, they want things like protecting companies, insurance protection. They want to protect companies from being sued. They want to give tax breaks for people who are not working. Welcome aboard, Andrea Ratliff. Think about this. The things that they are concerned about are for business once again, not people. In other words, they want to give them a discount on their FICA. In other words, the 7.5% that the company has to pay for you, they want that cut. They also want to ensure that if a company forces you to work in an unsafe condition, if the company says, take that mask off, or if the company does not have the ventilation system when they ask you to come back to work, but you have to go to work to keep your job, and you finally said, no, you're causing me sickness, and you try to sue them. Oh, no, they're protected. They can get you sick and not pay. But when it comes to saying, we want to give the American citizen $600 a week while this stuff is still there. Give every American $600 a week, whether they're working or not. And why do I say whether they're working or not? Those people that are working, that is almost like, that is like emergency pay, or rather hazard pay. So I think everybody should get that $600 per week, or whatever it is. And you know what? The money is there in the economy. We create the money, and it doesn't cause inflation. You know why it doesn't cause inflation? Because there is enough supply. Don't let them fool you. The reason why they don't want that $600 is they want Americans to be forced to go to work in unsafe conditions. They want Americans to go to work in unsafe conditions. And by starving them, they figure if we starve you, you have got to go out there and work, instead of being humane and saying, we're going to put the economy on pause. We'll give everybody $600. For those who are working, consider it hazard pay, which is well deserved because they're out there. We have to speak up. Like we are. I'm encouraging you to speak up. Go tell the story to your neighbor. Print the story, post the story on your Facebook. Tweet the story. I am going to cut some of these portions out of the program today to make it easily tweetable. Because people, what's happening right now is legalized murder. And I know it's a harsh word, but that's what it is. Legalized murder. Folks, I got to get out of here. My name is Egberto Willies. This is Politics Done Right. And by the way, that's my store on the on the screen right there that I always forget to turn on at the end. But anyway, my name is Egberto Willies. This is Politics Done Right. And you know how I end this, baby. I am what? Out. Welcome to Politics Done Right. I am your host, Egberto Willies. This is a progressive program that will take the mystery out of politics. This is the program that will encourage you to make sure government becomes we the people. Whether you are liberal, progressive, conservative, your point of view. We are an independent media outlet that, unlike mainstream media beholden to corporations, we only owe allegiance to you. Remember, you can also send me a tweet at EGBERTOWILLIES. That is at Egberto Willies. Let us engage. It is Politics Done Right.